Last April, NBC rocked the entertainment world by picking an unknown comic and writer to replace David Letterman. A former Harvard Lampoon president, Saturday Night Live staff writer, and writer and producer of The Simpsons, Conan O'Brien, jumped into the late-night ring on September 13th. Just 30 years old and a student of television, his humor ranges from the silly to the cerebral, and we're pleased to have him now to talk about late-night television and his own comic career. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Well, it's nice to be here.
Tell me about...
Very nice set you have here.
I know.
I almost went this way. Round table. And
yeah, this is called minimalist television.
Yeah, that's very nice.
This is what you do when you have no budget. You know? This is public television at its best.
Very nice.
Yeah. But this is a classy table. When you think about tables, at least we went for a classy table.
You did. You went all the way. Where'd you get this thing?
Soho.
I want one.
For your breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me how you feel about your show and how it's going in terms of your own sense of finding your voice and what you want to do with it and how you want it to emerge.
Well, so far, I'm enjoying it thoroughly, which was the biggest question I had is, am I going to enjoy this?
Yeah.
You know, I've never hosted a late night show before. And I thought, am I going to enjoy this? That's the most important thing to me, and we're having a lot of fun doing the show. I think so far it's gone about as well as I could expect it to go. It's a new show. The ratings are actually pretty respectable. I thought for the most part the critics were pretty nice, and we've had a good time. I think we're finding it. It's going to take a while. I think the biggest concern of mine is it takes a while to get your personality out over TV. It doesn't happen overnight. It's sort of like laying a mosaic. If you look at any one tile, you don't know what it is. It takes a while to get your whole personality out. So I think it's going to take a little while for people to get to know who I am.
What do you want to do with it? I mean, what kind of show do you want?
Just I want to accumulate a lot of power and then abuse it.
Yes, I think so.
That's all I've ever wanted.
I'm going to show tent now, and then primetime tomorrow, and a network on Thursday.
Right. No, I want to.
I mean, how is it different? I mean, you look at the Letterman show.
Sure.
And you don't want to do what he was doing, but you're going to have some elements.
I want to, but the lawyers won't let me.
Yes.
I want it all.
Don't we all?
No, but the biggest difference is I think people have seen already. I mean, the comparisons. People were saying over the summer before anyone had any idea what I was going to do. What do you know? Who are you? How are you like Dave or not like Dave? And I think just a few weeks into it, they see, okay, he's not really Dave at all. He's just this completely different person. And my sense of humor, and the sense of humor of the people that I've hired to help me do this show, is sometimes very silly and goofy, and I think it's unique. I think it has its own niche, and I think that's been made clear already. I don't think these things are personality driven. Dave is Dave. He's a very distinct personality, and he's true to it, which makes his show so great. Jay is Jay. I'm me.
Chevy is Chevy.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and those are things you can't fake. Your personality works on TV or it doesn't, I think, in this format. And that's what, if given the time, I think, if people check it out, I think they'll like what they see.
Do you have any sense that you're racing against time? I mean, that there is this sense that, boy, I want to make sure that if I'm at 5, out of a possible 10, I'm at 5 now. Right. Will they give me enough time, a year or however long it takes, to get to where I want this show to be?
I've been promised that I have 12 years to find it.
I think you can do it in 12.
12 years.
If not, back to writing.
Right, exactly. No, we...
You'll only be 42, so I mean, this is
that's right. It's going to take... the network so far has been very supportive. I
love those network executives.
Yes. Oh, yes. No, actually, they've been nice. They're letting me do what I want to do. They like the show. I think they have a sense. They come and they watch the show, and they see that it's cohesive and that it has a sensibility, and that it gets better and better. And I think that makes them happy.
Do you like the skits better or the interviews better?
Well, I'm a comedy buff. I've always been. Comedy is my passion in life, and so. It's interesting because there'll be some nights where I love the interview part because I really click with someone and it's someone I really want to talk to. My primary concern was always that it be a funny show, that it be a show that was amusing and interesting in a different way, and that the interviews would be, you know, that they'd be respectable and good, and of course that ranges. You know, some nights.
Depends on the guest, depends on...
It depends on the guest, the chemistry. Some nights the guest's okay, but I don't really find, you know, I've got to get better at finding, you know, finding what interests them, bringing them to life.
Let me take a look at a clip. This is political humor from Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Here it is, a Les Aspin segment. Take a look.
Let's move on to Haiti. Now, on This Week with David Brinkley, you offered some classified information. You said U.S. troops should carry M16 rifles, and that was a mistake, I guess.
I didn't know that show was being beamed out to, I didn't realize it was being beamed out to an entire country, Conan.
What are you talking about? It's This Week with David Brinkley. It's a TV show.
I didn't know. I'm not a mind reader, Conan. I can't read David Brinkley's mind. He didn't tell me it was a show. I'm not a Swami.
Okay. A lot of people, Mr. Aspin, say that the administration lacks focus.
I'm sorry, what were you talking about?
That the administration lacks focus. Well, I mean, were you listening?
No, I wasn't, Conan. I didn't know I was supposed to listen. Had I known that I was supposed to pay attention, I would have, but I'm not a genie, Conan. Okay. I don't have a turban on.
Yeah, right. You didn't know. Let me ask you something.
Didn't know.
Mr. Aspin, what are you going to have for, what's for dinner tonight? What are you going to have for dinner?
I don't know. Conan, I can't foresee. I wish I had a time machine. I could go to the restaurant that I'm going to go to.
Right.
And then I would tell you, Conan, but I don't have that machine. It hasn't been built yet.
So, Mr. Aspin, you do, though, think that you will be going to a restaurant for dinner?
Don't pin me down, Conan.
You liked it, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, no, I like I say, I thoroughly enjoy what we're doing. I do want to point out that's Robert Smigel, who's a producer on the show and my head writer, does the lips when we do those bits, and he's a big part of the comedic vision of this show.
Is he also a Lampoon guy?
No, Robert's not. I met Robert when I went to Saturday Night Live, and then we were both interested in performing, and we wrote and performed in a stage show in Chicago together, and I always wanted to work with him. So.
What is it, though? So many people from the Lampoon have gone on to sort of success. What is it about the Lampoon, and you especially, because you were president for a couple of years there?
Right.
Elected when you first were a sophomore, were you?
That's right, yeah.
What's it about the Lampoon that makes it a training ground for future greatness in comedy or near greatness?
I think one of the things about the Lampoon is that it's... I don't think it's this institution which can make people funny. I don't think anything does that. I think people have to be funny by the time they get into the Lampoon. It's not a magical place. I think what it does is it gets you thinking about comedy and what's funny and what's not. And it's a pretty severe atmosphere. I mean, people are very critical there. They'll tell you when they don't think you're funny, and the pieces that you write for the magazine, other people will really savage them on the staff. And that just is a tough environment, and I think in some ways it makes you develop. It's a good farm system almost in some ways for comedy, because I got to the Lampoon when I was 18 and started working very hard, and I realized right away this is what I want to do with my life. I want to write comedy.
What was it about writing comedy that made you say, this is it?
Well, it wasn't even so much writing comedy. All my life, since I was a kid, that was the way that I had been accepted. I had been the guy who came into school. I wasn't a good athlete. I wasn't particularly, I wasn't a genius. I was able to be funny. I was able to make people laugh spontaneously. And by the time I got to school, I realized there is actually a form for this. There is a way, this is something that you can pursue later in life, which is something I never realized before. And I think that was a big moment in my life. I was 18 years old, and I realized here are these other people who are intelligent, and they're my peers, and they're taking this very seriously. They're taking comedy seriously, and maybe I should too.
Yeah. Did you then want to be a performer?
Yeah, I had always wanted to be a performer my whole life. I had been started tap dancing very seriously when I was a kid because I wanted to be an entertainer. I wanted to be Jimmy Cagney.
But
when I
no
was a
one in
kid.
your family was in that business.
No, my family, no one's into. They perform for each other.
Yes.
They are all performers
at a table like this.
Right, but no one had ever been in entertainment in my entire history of my family, and so this is something that I always wanted to be a performer. I was always fascinated with. I remember seeing Sid Caesar's 10 from Your Show of Shows. My dad took me to see it when I was a kid, and I just thought, that's what I want to do.
And how hard is the shift from having been at Saturday Night Live and having been at The Simpsons and having, even when you were at The Simpsons writing, I assume you were performing the part. So there was,
Yeah.
you were doing something.
I had always been, I think there was some, over the summer, people were saying, well, it's this writer. They're going to put a writer out there.
Yeah,
and I think people had this vision that I was this guy with thick glasses.
Sat in a room.
Right, who sat in
Typing
a
out
room,
jokes.
right, exactly, typing in the dark, and they opened the door and this shaft of light hit me, and I said, oh, excuse me, what is it you want? And they said, we were going to make
We'll
you a
make you a
performer.
star.
Yeah, come on, nerd. And I had always been a writer who, the way I wrote was to perform for people, to say, what do you think of this skit? And then I'd do it for them. When I went to The Simpsons, all the other writers were kind of stunned a little bit because I would play all the parts and do the voices of The Simpsons. And, I'd do Marge's voice and then Homer's voice, and they hadn't seen, and I'd jump around, and they hadn't seen that before.
What's the hardest part of the of moving, the shift from being all of that, which
Right.
is Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons and other things that I've
Right.
forgotten for the moment, and having to walk out there and do stand-up, number one, and
Right.
2, to do skits, comedic skits, and 3, to be there and to be the center for the show that gives the show its flow
I think
and
something
its
that's
transition.
making it. I think something that's making it a lot easier is that I'm not trying to be anything I'm not. I'm not a club stand-up.
Now, is,
So
that
I'm-
is that a bad deficit for you, having not done that, having
I
not
don't think
been
so.
there?
No, I don't think so. I think in some ways, if I admire people that do that. I think it's I think a lot of amazing stand-up comics come out of that format.
You mean from a Seinfeld to a Leno
Exactly,
and others? Yeah.
right, and they're great professional stand-up comedians, and that's not. I think what I'm doing is I made a conscious decision. I'm not going to try and do what they do. I didn't spend the summer going to comedy clubs. I'm a real person. I'm just going to go out there and say things that I think are funny, and just be Conan. And I think that's so far. I go out there and I'll tell a few jokes or stories every night, and the audience laughs, and they're things that I think are funny, and I think I'm presenting them, in a way that's honest, in a way that it's just Conan. It's just Conan talking, and that's all I've ever wanted from this show. I just want this show to be. My only goal is that I get myself out there 100%. If people don't like that and don't accept that, I'll say, well, that's all I can do.
But sometimes it's even hard to do that. I mean, it's hard
Right.
to make sure that you are natural and comfortable and that
That's
what you
the
are.
That's what takes time. I mean,
Yeah.
it took Dave a while. It's going to take me a while to. It's a very strange thing to say. What we'd like you to do is go out there and just be yourself, completely uninhibited, on a set in front of cameras, 200 people in the audience, and we'll critique you every night, and critics will watch for when you rub your fingers together or touch your nose or anything like that. And I think it takes a little while to become completely unself-conscious in that environment.
Yeah,
But
I'll tell you a funny thing I saw the other night. You were doing something, and somebody was saying, look at your hands. It was an evaluation of you. You remember
right,
saying,
right, we did
And
a
it was
bit.
saying, it was a bit about how am I doing and looking at your
Right,
hands.
right.
And then I saw someone I admire enormously who I think has adjusted to television with instant success is Russell Baker doing Masterpiece Theater. And he was standing up before this, on a couch, on the end of a couch, and he was doing his delivery, and it was natural, and it was flowing, and he had written it, obviously, and it was very good, but his hands were going just like this. And it made me think of that skit you were doing because the guy was saying, what's he doing with the hands? Look at your hands.
Right. Well, I think one thing that's I wouldn't want to get. I do things. I have tics and mannerisms, and I think sometimes there's a tendency these days to think we've got to get rid of all of those and be just a completely smooth
Plastic.
performer. And what I think is nice is no, my voice isn't perfect for TV. I mean, can't you tell? It's there are things about me that aren't perfect for TV. There are times when you can see that I'm just a little thrown, or you can see that I have that I touch my nose, or I do something like that. And sometimes I think, don't get rid of all that. In a way, I think I'm just a real person, and
Because
it
it
doesn't.
makes you authentic.
Yeah, I think it's real. If this again, I say if for any reason down the road NBC would decide, well, this show didn't work, I'm proud. I think the humor reflects my sensibility. I think we're going for the music and the guests that reflect my sensibility for the most part, and we're doing the show I wanted to do. And so I would not feel any bitterness or sad. You know, I would be sad because I enjoy doing it if it were to end. But I think we're doing what I want to do.
If, in fact, you're doing the show you want to do, and critics, I just saw a piece by Tom Shales, I think, saying, look, you know, it's not working for him as a critic. Does it bother you, or do you say to those critics, I'm doing the show I want to do? If you don't like the show I want to do, then sorry. You know, I can't please everybody, but this is what I want to do. I've found my voice. It's the show I want. It's the combination I want. We are approaching what I want to be.
Right. I think... first of all, to say that it doesn't bother me would be, I think like the rest of us, I'm human. When I always take criticism, you know, it always rattles me somewhat. When someone says, I think his hair looks ridiculous, you know, there's a little part of you that says, gee, does my hair look ridiculous? I think what keeps me going is that so far anyway, for every critic that says it's not working for me, there have been, I think, 3 critics that say, there's something here, I like this. So for the most part, we've had positive feedback. The other thing is, I just don't know what else I could do. This is my show, and...
Has any of this been good advice? I mean, if any critic written something and you said, he's right, you know?
Yes, yeah.
And what did they say?
Some have said I should get out of the country. I think they're right. I don't like America.
Do the show from Jamaica.
No, I think, yeah, sometimes I'll read things and I'll say, I agree, it's, you know, a
don't cough on the air.
Right,
Never
a critic will
cough on
say
the
he
air.
coughs too much. It's a sign of weakness. No, I've had, you know, sometimes you read something and they'll say, well, he doesn't seem, you know, 100% comfortable yet in the
But that's true.
in the interview, and I'll say to them, I'll say they're right, and I'm aware of it, and I've got to get there. Sometimes they'll say, well, I don't know if the color behind him is very flattering. He's red-haired with blue-eyed, and I don't know if that mustard color. And I'll think, you know, they might be right, and maybe we'll change that down the line. But when they get into, if a critic says, I don't know, I've looked at the guy and he just doesn't do it for me, there's nothing I can do. I mean, this is I'm not going to say he's got a point. I'll have my hair color changed, and which I'm going to do. You should watch for that in the spring. It's going to be exciting.
What color will it be?
Right. Well, we're going to go for a jet black.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Kind
of
of
an
sexy.
An Elvis look.
Yes.
Your CBS soon will put on Somebody to Follow Letterman.
Yeah. My brother, actually.
Your honeymoon
needs the
will then
work.
be over.
Right.
In a sense.
This was a honeymoon?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
What a honeymoon.
I can't wait for what's next. But there is some sense also that you're going to face increased competition.
Sure.
Yeah. Are you ready for that?
Well, I'll have to be. I mean, again, there's only my job now is to try and do what I think is a good show every night. Now, there's some shows I walk away from and I'm not happy, but for the most part, I think we're on the right track and I'm happy with it. After that, there isn't a lot I can do. If they put a show up opposite me, people will prefer that show to mine, or they'll prefer mine, and there's not a lot I can do about it.
Do you have an audience in mind? I mean, who is it that you think is watching the show, or who do you sense is watching the show?
It's funny, you know, you always sort of do a show. I mean, at the beginning I said, I want my brothers to like this show if I wasn't their brother, because my brothers and I used to, when we were young, we would stay up late and we'd watch SCTV and we'd play with the antenna and we'd try and it was bounced off a station in New York and we could just barely get it in, and we would watch it and just love it, and we were just comedy enthusiasts. And
this is Second City TV.
Yeah, Second City TV. Before they went to network, when they were just coming out of Canada or something like that, it was. And I remember thinking when I got this job, that's all I want to do is do a show that people like my brothers would appreciate and like, people who are comedy enthusiasts. I'm not just doing the show for Generation X, whatever Generation X is. I've had a lot of, when I walk down the street, older people come up to me and say they like the show. They like the energy of the show and they're enjoying it. And also, I've had a lot of 15, 16, 17-year-old kids who are obviously comedy enthusiasts say, oh, they love this bit or they love that bit.
Are the choice of guest directed towards any kind of audience? I mean, when you look at the guest, what are you thinking? Is this somebody I want to talk to, or is it somebody I think appeals to who I think my audience is?
I think what's nice now about the show is that we just have the whole range. I mean, in a given night, there'll be nights when I talk to Steve Allen, a little girl who's 7 years old who flew a plane across America, and a 24-year-old actress. And it's just every... you get every different combination, and I actually like that. I like, the sort of smorgasbord feel to. I'm gonna talk to everybody, and we'll find out over time who am I good with.
You don't consider yourself in the late night wars, so to speak, because you're on at 12:30 rather than at 11 or 11:30.
I don't feel that. Sometimes I'll bump into someone in the street, and they'll say, "Hey, good luck in your war against Dave," and I'll think I have no problem. I'm on after Dave. He's doing a good show, and I wish him well. And I'm not in competition with him. I think sometimes I'll see cartoons in the newspaper of I'm wearing boxing gloves and Dave's wearing boxing gloves and Jay's and I think I'm not.
You're not in the same place.
I'm not boxing anybody. But no, I don't really feel like I don't feel like I'm in competition with anyone else. I most of all feel like I'm in competition with myself to do the best show I can do.
Did he have any advice for you, Dave?
He said he didn't really have advice. He called me up and he wished me well, and he said that 12:30 is just the best time slot in TV, and you should
to
enjoy
find
it.
your own footing and to do the kind of things.
Yeah, I think, and that's the spirit. I really admired what David Letterman did with that 12:30 time slot. He experimented with it. He did his own thing, and it took a while for people to accept it. And I'm not looking for immediate acceptance. All I want to do is do with that time slot what Dave did with it, which is experiment, be true to yourself, try new things. That's what that time slot's for. If I was just doing a show that was pandering to people just to try and stay on the air, I'd be wasting the 12:30 time slot.
If this for some reason doesn't work for you, I mean, you say 12:30 at night on NBC was not the right time for me to launch my own performing career.
Right.
What would you do?
Game show.
Game show.
Yeah, host a game show. I'll tell you why.
Which kind?
Prizes are involved.
Yeah.
People like those kind of things.
Yes, they do.
And it just feels
And
good.
you don't have to do a monologue.
Exactly. Yeah. I would, though.
Yeah.
I actually...
You could do a monologue for your game show?
Right.
Well, who would be your hero? Would it be Pat Sajak, maybe? Or would it be...
Sajak's good. Very good.
Then you get to work with... What's her name? Vanna Wright.
No. I would model myself after Wink Martindale.
Oh, Wink. I like Wink, too.
Wink, because of the name. You can't beat the name. You just can't. Wink Martindale.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you
Great
very
to
much.
have you
Yeah,
here.
it was nice to
Thank
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Pleasure. Stay with... As we go out, we'll run another clip. This is also from Conan's Late Night with Conan O'Brien. Here it is, the Miss America segment.
Now here, you're just encouraging him. You're talking with your mouth full.
Right.
And I don't think that's right. She's very gracious, but,
What? I'm thirsty. I was...
Well, now there, the thirst isn't the problem. You've got the straw.
Look, I'm offering her some. I think that's very nice.
Yeah.
Real good.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.